Hey knitters, welcome to episode 190 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. Oh my gosh, doesn't it feel like we just did the 100th episode? That was like a big episode. I gotta do something special for 200. We're only 10 episodes away. Oh my gosh. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Devin Ventry. You can find me online at KnittyMcPurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly on Instagram, and if you want to email me, I am Devin with an I at KnittyMcPurly.com. Welcome. How have you been? We had a hurricane, Hurricane Debbie. Isn't that the sweetest name for a hurricane? Gigi was like, Mom, I can't take this hurricane seriously. Like, its name is Debbie. It's so sweet. It's probably baking cookies and knitting. Like, what's it gonna do? Dump a whole pile of yarn on me? Anyway, we had kind of just the remnants of it. Here in Virginia, we had some rain. It was really no big deal. It was actually kind of nice to have the rain because it's been so dry. Also, there's one more week until school starts. Oh my gosh, crazy. I hope your summer has gone really, really well. Mine has been good, busier than I like. I need more of a break next summer, I think. So we'll see. All right, progress and shop news. Oh my gosh, I forgot to bring them up here. New in the shop, I'll put the video up. New in the shop are mermaid dogs, dog magnets, and sparkle dog stickers. Aren't they so cute? That's me putting it on my actual vehicle, and this is me sticking it on my iPad. And here it is. Isn't it so cute? It's the same dog sticker as before. It's just now sparkle. And you guys have loved them. I have had tons of orders for them. Thank you so much for showing up for the dogs and the sparkle dogs. We all love the dogs. I know it's weird. I've talked about this before. I know it's weird. It doesn't make sense. It just came into my head and I drew it, and it needed to be everywhere because it's adorable. It's such a cute little Boston Terrier with his little love handles poking out of his mermaid tail as if he's been kind of like stuffed into it. And he is knitting and he's happy, and he's got a crown of flowers and a unicorn horn. And it's just a reminder that we don't take ourselves too seriously. And now we cannot take ourselves too seriously on our vehicles and in sparkle form. So all good all the time. For the longest time, I had a Murdog sticker on my car for years, and I just scraped it off the window a couple weeks ago because it was starting to disintegrate. They do last really well, the stickers. They're made for going through the dishwasher and being on a vehicle and being in the sun and the rain and the cold and the heat. But over the course of years, they will start to deteriorate, and I'm hoping that the magnet will not. I have other magnets on my car, and those have held up really well. So how did we manage before the Murdogs? I don't know. We somehow did. Okay, it is August 10th. Oh my gosh, it feels, I don't know. August has been a weird month. It's been a weird month. It's both going too fast and too slow all at the same time. But August color of the month is still available. Here it is in DK. It's just embracing all of the summer vibes, I think. And something that I wanted to talk about is the colors that you can match it with. I really should be doing this every month, and a lot of times I just get up here and I haven't brought the colors up. So here it is with Roxette. That's beautiful. I kind of love it with Roxette and Beryl. That's awesome. The color of the month is great to incorporate into a colorwork project. And it always has corollaries that go with it beautifully. That's really pretty. Also, so here it is. This is Fontaine. This is Meadow. Meadow looks great with it. Oh, that's really pretty. That would make a beautiful faucette if you're in the market for a faucette or any 3-color sweater. So we've got Fontaine, August color of the month, and Meadow. Here it is with Beryl. Beryl like the gem, not barrel like roll out the barrels, not that. So anyway, it coordinates with a lot of colors. And of course, here it is with Jovis and a sock set. This is that sock that I made. I have done a little bit on the second sock, not very much. But Here is an example of a sweater that I made last summer. This is Meadow in the Frankfurt fingering, and this is a color of the month from last summer. And it just looks so good. This is my Awaken sweater that I knit last summer, and I just love it so much. I love colorwork sweaters. I'm really looking forward to the Benedicta project that I'm gonna do next month, as soon as I am done with this sweater project, where I'm going to use, I think I'm gonna use September's color of the month, and that's the sweater that I'm going to add bust shaping to. So we can talk about that and how to incorporate that into a sweater so that you get the best fit possible. Okay, moving right along to the topic of the week. This is week 4 of the sweater project. I talked in depth last week about the measurements and the stitch counts and the numbers. So if you missed last week's episode and you're interested in the sweater project, go back and watch that one first. I am at the messiest, floppiest part of a bottom-up sweater, which is where I have the front done and I'm halfway through the back and it's just everything's flopping all around. There are ends everywhere. Because I'm using hand-dyed yarn, I'm using the Devin AT in the Valentine colorway. I am alternating, and I'm not alternating everywhere. I'm just alternating some places because I just feel like mostly it'll be fine, but you don't want to have like a chunk that's obviously a different skein from another chunk of the sweater. That looks terrible, and you can always see it, especially in pictures, and I hate that. So in places I am alternating, and right now I'm alternating. Also, and I talked last week about the short rows and the shaping and how I was going to do all that. One little mistake I wanted to share with you is that when I got to the shoulder drop and I was ready to do the short rows, I did them wrong. I was like, that's not right. So it was like this rather than like this. So I had to pull that out and just start over again. And sometimes that happens because on one side you're working them on the right side and on the other shoulder you're working them on the wrong side because they mirror, right? Like a human body goes like this. And so as a result, I just did it wrong the first time. So I was like, okay, rip it out, do them the other way. And they came out really good. Here is a little video showing where I am. All right, so here is the front of my sweater. And this is as far as I got. I got basically up to the shoulder seams. So what I did was when I got to the place where I wanted to divide, I had 40 stitches here, 40 stitches, 48 and 40 stitches. And that's because I decreased 2 on each side coming in because I should have 42 up here, which is what I have now. So I added those stitches back in and I bound off. So I put stitch markers here to show my 40 and my 48 and my 40. And then this was 48 stitches through the middle. So I bound off the middle 24 and then I decreased every row. So not just the right side rows, but every single row to get this many stitches decreased, 12 and 12, to get that many stitches decreased over this much vertical knitting. And then when I got here, this is all the short rows. So at the point where I stopped decreasing is that right there. And this is all short rows to give me the shoulder drop right there. So this is the front as it is right now. When it comes to the back, this is how far I am. This is a mess. This is the absolute messiest part where there's ends everywhere and I've got 2 different balls of yarn that I'm pulling from because this is a hand dye and I don't want you to be able to tell. So it's kind of a mess, but I'm a couple inches in, and on the back, I'm going to work further up here and I will bind off more stitches in the middle and do less decreasing, and then I will do my short rows to create my shoulder drop. So this is primarily what I've been working on, is this sweater. My son had a class this week, and the school where my kids go is far enough away that if they're not going to be in there for very long, I just wait for them in the parking lot, which is a lot of great knitting time. So I worked on this sweater mainly in the car all week. And at the end of the day, when I just don't have any more work in me, I sit on the couch and I can work on it then. So you guys know that I have been stricken with a very serious case of startitis, also known as cast-on-itis, where I just can't stop starting new projects, even though I've got plenty of projects that are halfway done that I really ought to finish. I just keep starting new ones. So a couple of months ago, I saw this picture of Rachel Green from the 90s. Do you remember this outfit? Of course you do, because this is an iconic Rachel outfit. It's the black vest with the white shirt underneath. And I thought, gosh, that's so cute. I would love to recreate that. So that was kind of in my mind, but I didn't do anything about it. So then I'm watching a podcast that I like online, and I see this. And this is a podcaster who I enjoy. Her name is Brett, and she is wearing a very similar outfit, only this time her vest is a ribbed vest and it's brown. And I just was like, stop, I have to knit this outfit. So I just think it's so cute. So, and also you'll notice that her vest has a folded over rib on the arm and the neck. I don't know that I'm gonna do that. I probably will not do that, but I did decide that I'm gonna knit a vest. I could have gone to the internet and found a vest pattern and just adapted it to whatever I wanted to do. I could have done that. But I am me, and I don't like to be told what to do. I want to come up with my own thing. So I knit a swatch. This is Warsaw worsted in the Black Forest Cake colorway. And I decided to do the exact same faux rib that I did on my Jovis duster. Don't ask me questions about the Jovis duster. I have no answers, but this is a great stitch pattern. It is so easy to work. It is so much fun. And I thought this pattern would be great for this sweater. And I was thinking about what color I wanted, and I look good in green because of my eyes and my hair and my, like, this is just, green is my color. And I wanted to use a color that I had not done before. I have a sweater in Bosque. I have one in Meadow that I just showed you. I do not have one yet in Black Forest Cake. So I worked up the swatch. I have blocked it, but I have not done anything else with it. I haven't measured it or done any math for the vest. This is as far as I got. I wanted to talk about, so in terms of the vest, I'm going to do it similarly to the Valentine sweater. I'm going to do bottom up. Am I gonna split the hem? No, I'm not gonna split the hem, but it's gonna be a super simple knit. It's gonna be the same type of neckline, just gonna do ribbing here, round neck here, ribbing here. So, so easy. I will be documenting that, so you'll be able to see that process when I get there. As I was knitting this, I wanted to talk to you about variations in hand-dyed yarn, because sometimes I get this question. Hand-dyed yarn has variations because of the fact that it is hand-dyed. It's not done by a machine, it's done by actual human beings. Now, sometimes there are too many variations for your project. You get it and you say, there are places where the dye did not take and I'm not happy, it's not gonna work for me. Fine, totally fine. My husband is yelling at my son. I don't know why, he needs to mow something, whatever. But a lot of the time, those variations, if they are at a level that makes you happy, come out looking like this. And this gives the project so much depth and interest. And it made me think of this core memory that I have, which is really weird. I don't know why it's stuck in my head so much. I guess I do know why, because it kind of blew my mind. In the early 80s, my mom was into ceramics. I feel like this was kind of a trend where she would go to this place and get these white ceramic things that looked like they'd probably been poured. They were chickens and little babies and I don't remember what else. But my mom would go get these ceramic items, paint them with acrylic paint, and turn them into lamps and whatever else. But I remember that after she would paint them and they would dry, she took this brown stuff and she covered the whole thing in this brown stuff. And I remember watching this going, it's like when you're watching Bob Ross put one more happy little tree in and you're like, no, Bob, you did it. It's done. Stop putting in the trees. And then after he puts that tree in, you're like, oh, that tree was totally supposed to be there all along. It was meant to be. Same thing, I'm watching my mom do this, like, no, Mom, you're ruining it. I might have even said, you are ruining that. Why are you putting all of that brown goo all over this ceramic thing? And I think she probably said something like, just wait, because after you put it on, then you wipe it off, and the brown stays in the crevices, and it gives the whole thing so much more depth and interest. And that's like what we have going on here. Black Forest Cake is a color where you can see this very well. There's just that's good. There's just variation in the stitches, and it fills me with joy. It adds depth and dimension and gives stitch definition and is just so interesting. So I can't wait to work with that. I will be making that in worsted and I'll be documenting that along with the Valentine sweater. All right, the comments section. Dilly Dahlia says, I'm glad you talked about diggery again. I recently ordered 3 skeins of Fiji fingering in the thistle color, specifically for a diggery. It seems like a perfect summer t-shirt. It is, and Fiji and diggery are a perfect match. I can't wait to see that. I think that's gonna be great and it'll be nice and cool. As for your flexi flips, not having the 2 different tips, I wonder if you have the Haya version called Flyers, which I don't think have 2 different tips. Yes, I am pretty sure that that's the case because I went through a major Haya kind and it would totally make sense that those are not the flexi flips. But I like them. I mean, they're fine. I kind of wish they were a little longer. They're meant to be like a DPN that is flexible, but whatever. She says, I had a set of flexis for a few years, and no matter how many times I tried them, they drove me crazy. And the 2 different tips were just one reason why. I always wanted the sharp tip, so having to check which tip it was annoying to me. I finally de-stashed them on Ravelry and will be sticking with either Magic Loop or 9-inch circulars, or get the Hayas, because the tips are the same. Emma Denson says, hi Devin from the UK. Hi Emma. You're right about young people being more adventurous and fearless. When I was 12, I loved making my own clothes, so I decided to knit my first Aran cardigan with all over cables and baubles. I don't remember how long it took me to finish, but I do remember taking it to church and knitting it during Sunday school. I still love knitting today, over 30 years later. I really enjoy your podcast. Thank you so much for all you do. Thank you so much for that lovely comment, Emma, for that lovely comment. I really appreciate it. Katie B says, my color card and August colorway arrived yesterday. The color card is awesome. I love it. Thank you, Gigi, for hand tying all those yarn samples. It is not her favorite job because it is very tedious, but it pays well and she can watch TV while she does it, so she likes that part of it. I'm really enjoying the step-by-step process with your custom sweater knitting. I agree that physical fitness and generally living a life in motion rather than sitting all the time is one of the best ways to prevent injuries and pain. Also one of the best ways to generally enjoy life. 100%. And I want to say not just movement, because movement is great. Get out, walk. Don't sit all the time because it is bad for you in general. But particularly women, and particularly as we get older, we need to lift weight. You can start small, talk to your doctor, how much weight should I start with? But start with some 3-pounders and work your way up. I can lift more weight now than I have ever been able to lift in my entire life. And it helps so much with bone density, because especially as a post-cancer woman who gets no estrogen, I'm not allowed to have any estrogen because the cancer that lives, I don't know, wherever, that when it comes, it likes the estrogen. And so improving bone density is very important, but just not getting injured while knitting, since this is a knitting pod. I mean, it's good for you in general, but even just in terms of knitting, I have had no knitting injuries since I have been lifting weights. So you can start small and work up, but you can lift so much more weight than you think you can. Used to be, my husband had these 225-pound weights, and I remember years ago acting like these were so heavy that I couldn't even move them. And now I can lift 45-pound weights, and it's very empowering. It makes you feel really good. Anyway, SK Hoyt says, your tee looks great. I like that color. Bosque, yes, on you. I think your August color would make a pretty tee too. It would, absolutely. I'm enjoying watching your DIY sweater take shape, and hearing how you are thinking through it makes sense to me. I'm so glad, because sometimes I'm not sure if the way that I'm saying it is coming across. She says, about shaping for both bust and hips, instead of making it bigger for both, you can knit a size that's big enough and then do waist shaping to come in at the waist and give it some shape. You can do some decreases or increases above and below the waist at 4 points, 2 on the front and 2 in the back. I did that on a cardigan and it looks very tailored. Now, that's a good point. It's funny, my husband and I were watching The Office last night, and Pam, I don't know if you're familiar with that show, but Pam was wearing like a button-up shirt and it fit her perfectly. And I said, do you see that shirt? That shirt has been tailored. You can't buy a shirt like that. And what you do, I learned this years ago from What Not to Wear, is you buy a shirt that is the right size for your bust or your biggest point, and then you have it taken in at all of the other points. So you can buy a giant shirt, that would be too big for you in the middle or wherever, and then have all of that taken in, or take it in yourself to make it fit. So Sharon's suggestion is exactly the same just for knitting. You just knit a bigger size and then take it in at the waist. Gosh, so that's interesting, because I wonder how that would jive with the idea of knitting the smaller size to fit your upper bust and then doing shaping in the bust. It would depend. It depends on your body shape and what you're trying to do. But Sharon's suggestion is very good. She says, yes, the Purl Soho rabbit hole. I have spent a lot of time that I should have spent knitting on my current whip, looking through their patterns, mostly dishcloths and hand towels, and then ordering yarn to make them. I think I have chronic cast-on-itis, or maybe it's project plan-itis. Me too. Planning yarn and colors is my favorite part of a project. Really? That is not my favorite part, but it's good to know that some people love it. I have so many bags of yarn for particular projects, as well as bags of whips, or more accurately, UFOs, unfinished objects. I wonder if I could last a whole year of not buying or starting something new, just working on what I already have. Probably not, but I should. And I don't know. I feel like this is the fun part of life. We all have our regular part of life that's, we have jobs and we have families, and we have to grocery shop and we have to do the laundry, and there's all that stuff. So just let's have our fun with our knitting. If we want to start stuff and not finish it, that's fine. That's kind of where I live right now. Linda Spencer said, there's always so much to think about from your podcast. Thank you so much, Linda. First, thank you for showing us how to use 3 16-inch circulars. I have yet to finish a sock, but I am liking Magic Loop more, mainly due to always having the needle I need right there. That's a good point, because you're only using one needle. I really appreciated your comments on the difference between selecting patterns that will suit our shape versus making adjustments to accommodate a shape different than the designer wrote the pattern for. I too am very straight up and down, but not a thin rectangle. Is this a celery stick? Rather a round apple. The best trick I've found is to start a pattern for the high bust measurement. If possible, I try to add a few increases in the few inches that would be the fabric on the bust, and then at the full bust point, which is usually the spot to cast on for armhole stitches. Yes, it depends. If you're knitting it bottom up, then you're going to put your short rows in before you separate for the sleeves. If you're knitting top down, you're gonna do it right at the sleeve divide. So it depends which direction you're going. Of course, this creates an issue with the sleeve size as well, but I find it easy enough to use knit two together or slip slip knit in the first few rounds of sleeves to decrease the sleeve to the circumference I want. That's definitely an option. You can also cast on fewer stitches in the underarm. They don't have to match. They typically do match, the cast on for the sleeve and the cast on for the underarm. They don't have to match. They just don't. Okay, and then she says, it's easy from here to knit straight or do some A-line shaping instead of slim waist shaping if needed. Whew, that was a lot of words. I hope that makes sense. That's how I always feel after I say anything. Allison Foster says, as always, a wonderful and enjoyable podcast. I like the Saturday time for the podcast. I watch on Saturday as soon as I can. However, I still watch on Sunday as well. About to order a color card. I just love it. I truly am not a fan of traveling. I was away from home last week. I never remember all the things. I even make lists. All this to say, I forgot my lotion. Not good for dry Texas weather. I dug through my purse and just slathered myself in Sanctum hand balm. As I was leaving the breakfast area at the motel, a mother and daughter passed me and both commented to each other how wonderful I smelled. I hope that makes you as happy as it makes me. I think that maybe makes me even happier. Wow. People you didn't know, and they didn't even say it to you, they just said it to each other like, oh, that lady smells good. Nice. Awesome. The hand balm is great. I will take the stick and use it as lip balm. I use it all the time, everywhere, as many of you do. In terms of not being a fan of traveling, neither is my husband. He just is not really a traveler. Some people aren't. Julie Brown says, good one, Devin. The puppies at the end were the icing on the cake. I am watching you on my phone as our boat zigzags through the fjords. Julie is in Norway. I hope you are having a great time if you're still there. I don't know, she's been there a while, but awesome. I would love to hear about your knitting needle situation, Julie. We're always talking about travel knitting needles. I have been more grateful than you can imagine for your balm stick. I forgot my lip balm. The light bulb went off, and yep, your stick has a dual purpose. I can now honestly say I put your balm from the top of my head to the tip of my toes. It is really good balm. I use it all the time too. Okay, this is a comment that I put here and I did not write who it's from, so I apologize. This person says, to Pam, I read Pam's comment last week about not liking the way her sweaters fit. She says, I highly suggest that if you love the yarn, rip the sweaters out. Take the time to learn what didn't work, as Devin suggests, and make notes about your actual gauge as you knit the sweater, since it will probably be used in a similar gauge pattern next time, and any other changes you'd want to make. Maybe take the time to find a pattern or two that you like the weight of yarn and then dream knit as you return the yarn to be useful again. I've learned so much from doing this again and again, and now I can finally knit sweaters that fit. It seems that so many of us lack a local knitting community and yet find a wonderful community here. I can't wait to meet some of you at the retreat. Me too. This is a great community. I love you guys. You are wonderful people. Like I was telling my husband the other day, every now and then I will have a problem. But I was like, and it'll get me down. And I'm like, I don't know why I bother getting down. 99.9% of my business is totally positive interactions with people. And so that's amazing. Like that's a really high percentage. You guys are wonderful. Cheryl over at Wise Owl Knits, hi Cheryl, says, I loved seeing your section on designing a sweater based on something in your wardrobe that fits you well. Several years ago, I had a male friend that knew I did a lot of knitting ask me to knit him a sweater. He told me that his mother used to knit for him and his brothers. When they would outgrow the sweaters, she would rip them out and use the yarn to make a larger sweater. I'm not sure where she got the extra yarn to make it bigger, but that was his story. He was my son's rugby coach and was from England and was very charming. He wanted something with lots of cables that he could wear as an outer layer. He was not a small man. As we do when someone asks us how much it would cost to make a sweater, I tried to put him off, but that didn't work. Every time I saw him, he would ask me again. Did I mention that he was really charming and had a British accent? I finally told him that I would do it for $600. I thought that would make him stop asking, but he agreed to the $600 right away. I felt kind of weird asking to take his measurements, so I asked him to let me borrow a jacket or sweatshirt that fit him the way he wanted this sweater to fit. He gave me a fleece jacket and I used that for all the measurements. With all the cables, there was lots of swatching and a good bit of math, but it ended up fitting him perfectly. The result was one of my designs, the Scottish Ale sweater. It is the best-selling of all my designs. He got his sweater and inspired a great pattern, and it worked out great for both of us. So that wonderful story brings us to knitting fantasies. This week, all of our knitting fantasies come from Cheryl over at Wise Owl Knits. I went and looked at the sweater, and it is fabulous. This is a great kind of standard fisherman sweater that's very masculine, very Irish, Scottish, cool, awesome sweater. It's very long, so you could shorten it if you wanted to. I never knit for men because I don't know any knit-worthy men. But if you were knitting for a man, men do tend to want their sweaters to be a little bit longer. This looks really good. I'm guessing that this is Cheryl's son and husband. This sweater is in what looks like the same yarn, but these are two different size sweaters. So kudos to you, Cheryl, for knitting this sweater twice. Oh my gosh, it just looks so good. So then I went on a dive in Cheryl's site and I found that even though the Scottish Ale sweater could work for a woman, she made one that is a little bit more feminine called the Scottish Ale 2. And she calls this tunic length. I would call this a dress. To me, this looks like a knitted dress. This particular one is maybe a little short for that, unless you had like opaque tights. You could do that, you could pull that off. This model's wearing it with jeans, but it is so, so pretty. The only thing is that you really can't make a mistake because it would be noticeable, especially on that front cable panel. But I do really enjoy knitting with cables, and I just think that this is so pretty. I have two more picks from Cheryl. The next one is called Trinitro, not sure which. And this is inspired by the Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, which I love, and Irish culture. So it's kind of like a St. Patrick's Day sort of sweater. She's knitted in what is pretty much the colors of the Irish flag. I think this is a DK weight sweater, which is really nice. I love a good DK sweater. But I just think this is really, really cool. And my last pick is my favorite. This is called the Bulls and Braids Boxy Sweater, and I absolutely love it. This is so beautiful. Now, one thing that's cool about this sweater is that it is top down. So you start with the neckline, and then you do the shoulders, and then you pick up the front and back from there. And I think the sleeves go on last. Cheryl, correct me if I said anything wrong, but based on what I read on your website, it seems like that is how this is knit. I just think it is so beautiful. It's so flattering. I love this style. So, so cute. If you've not been on Cheryl's website, I've linked all of these patterns down below, and I hope that you will go and check that out. All right, so here's what happened. This is everybody's favorite part of the podcast, where, I just ran up the stairs, where we share a knitting story from our oral tradition among our community. If you have a knitting story, please send it to me. I'm pretty sure that I am out after this one. So send me a knitting story. I would love to share it on the podcast. If something crazy happened to you while you were knitting, we've had some crazy stories on this podcast. So crazy, something, even if you just want to share your fiber journey, share it with us. This is our oral tradition, and what would we do without it? It's also everybody's favorite part of the podcast. Today's story comes from Amy, who lives in Michigan. And Amy actually sent me this beautiful card this week, and she sent me, let me show you, these Indian Lake artisan needles. And she said, these needles were gifted to me a few years ago. While I like them, I do not love them. I seem to recall they knit tight, and since I am already a tight knitter, this was not ideal. She says, so give them a try, keep them if you like them. And Amy packed these up pretty well. They were in this rather stiff card with an envelope and in their container. And despite that, I pulled them out and they were totally splintered in a lot of pieces. So I don't know if they went through a really aggressive postal machine or if they're just not that sturdy. I don't know. These are the maple 32-inch size 6 circulars. So thank you so much, Amy, for thinking of me. I really appreciate that. Being a tighter knitter is something that I would like to be. So I would like to try these. Maybe I'll go ahead and order some. But the join is, oh, they've disintegrated. I don't know why. Are they old? Because you said you were gifted them. Were they secondhand? All right, well, on this one, the part that's still together, it's a pretty good, nice, smooth join. Yeah, they look really nice. Sadly, I can't use these ones, but it was a nice thought. Thank you so much, Amy. Well, Amy sent me a knitting story to share. She says, I was going to write this in the comment section, but my comments have been way too long. Perhaps a story is better. Yes, I love a story. Since you have been talking about international travel and knitting needles, I have a relevant story to share. I travel with multiple projects, and if going to warmer climates, socks will be one of them. I'm always afraid of not having the right needles, so I take an interchangeable set, and at the time, I knit socks with double points. I had a knit pick set of 5 different sizes in a little pouch I took along. All metal, lots of needles. This trip was in 2011, and my husband and I went to Mexico. I checked all the rules before travel, thinking they were the same in all countries. Wrong. Regardless of where I traveled, when going through security, I would pull the knitting out of my carry-on and put it in a bin so I wouldn't get flagged for a bag check. You know, I was proactive and showing exactly what might cause an issue with the scanner. All went well on the way to Mexico. I breezed through security. On the way back, it was a different story. And this is not just from Amy. I have heard this from several people traveling out of Mexico. But this story is really something. As we're in line for security, the guards are chatting up the American tourists in English. We get to the front of the line. I have all my knitting stuff in a bin, and the guy starts taking my needles, my interchangeable set, my sock needle set, and my 3 projects. I'm shocked, and I try asking why, and now he's shrugging and doesn't speak any English. This ticks off my husband, who starts jawing at him. I promptly told him to just be quiet because I don't want to end up in a Mexican jail over knitting needles. Anyway, thankfully we had time, and I had a little tote bag in my carry-on. I grabbed all my stuff, put everything crucial, wallet, passport, etc. into the tote, and checked my carry-on with my knitting. The $50 fee was much less than the cost of the needles and the projects. That is great that you were still able to check them. That is awesome. Sometimes you've passed that point and it's too late. Amy says, the worst part was trying to figure out how to occupy my time at the airport and on the plane. That would stink because you were planning to knit and now your hands have nothing to do. Ugh. I count on knitting to keep me calm around all the crowds and the usual travel stress. I sadly purchased an extremely overpriced book to read and my day was ruined. The moral of the story is to check the rules of all applicable countries. Never assume that they are the same. Always carry an extra bag and always have a plan B to occupy your time. Also, when returning home, I pack at least one project near my suitcase zipper. Amid the hustle of grabbing luggage to go through customs in the US, I pause to get out my knitting for the rest of the trip home. I feel all the travel stress melt away when the yarn is in my hands. Yes, so I think that the moral of the story is travel with wooden knitting needles if you are going internationally. And there are ways to make those look like a pencil, like to rubber band them together. And then when they go through the scanner, it'll look like a pencil and they won't balk at that, and maybe not to have too many of them. Check most of them and just have one project with wooden needles for the airplane in international travel. Seems like that's a good plan. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will see you here next Saturday. Bye, knitters.